on my behalf. And as I indicated, Randy Wheelock was a really important component of our organization, both professionally and personally, over the last several years. And we wanted to make sure that we recognized him in a number of ways for the things that he has done. And so, this symposium is more or less in his memory and sort of pushing on his vision of developing research and potential therapies for our disease. And as I mentioned before, we were also going to be creating some sort of more formalized award down the line from here, and we'll have hopefully over the next few months a bit more detail about that. And if it does turn out to be a research award, we'll be promoting that again back out to you all in that regard. But Eric and Beth both wanted to say a few words on behalf of Randy, also known as, I asked them to quite a few times. But seriously, just to be able to talk a bit about Randy, the person and the human and the important part that he played really in our lives, but also the development of what we're doing here. So appreciate you guys being willing to do so, and the floor is yours.
Well, I just wanted to, we wanted to make sure that we recognized, we're actually videotaping this, thank you, Brian.
Sure.
I'm not sure how many people knew that Randy was really able to compartmentalize his personality. And we did not know as an organization his family. We heard, I'm sure as many of you, about his son Alex, and then his beautiful wife Carol. We had heard of them, but we had never met them. So there was a group of us, Neil, Eric, myself, and then one of our colleagues went down to the funeral in Johnson City, Tennessee, and we were able to meet his family. And I'm confident that they don't know the extent of his reach. And what I'm hoping to do, we're just going to take a few minutes, and I have a couple thoughts, and Eric has a couple thoughts, but this is an opportunity, if anybody would like to share something, we're going to use this video. My hope is that we'll be able to share it with Alex and Carol, because, as I said, they aren't aware about how much work. They knew he was gone an awful lot, and so this is an opportunity just to share if there's anything. So first of all, I just wanted to say, how many of you are here? Dr. Gam isn't on my screen. How many of you are here because of Randy, or you had direct involvement with Randy? Michelle met him on a plane. How many of you tried to avoid Randy when he was coming and you tried to go into the restroom, where you want to say, oh my goodness, here he's on the phone, do I want to take it or not? All of us. He was one of those individuals with such a passion. And we had several of our researchers say they had never ever met somebody that was such an advocate with no medical knowledge before he came to the organization. I will say that he and I, oftentimes, I can maybe speak on the previous three presidents combined, he rattled our cages, and his vision or his philosophy of it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission, found him challenging, but I can't tell you how many times we were on the phone in tears and supporting each other and loving on each other. He had a great faith in God. And so we talked about that an awful lot too, and that was important to him, and he was very involved in his church at home. And we want to just say that he is greatly missed. And I'm not sure our organization, we weren't even sure we were going to be able to carry this out, because he had such a vital role in this planning, and his death and his passing was such a surprise that we were in conversation with Dr. Bennett and saying, is this even possible? But we did. And so I want to thank all of you. I know our communication necessarily was a little bit scattered at first. For some people it was a little bit more scattered. But thank you for being a part of our team. And I think the biggest thing we can do to honor Randy, I don't know from the heavenlies that he can see us, but he would be saying, please don't give up. Please push on. Please help us in whatever we need to do. Think outside the box. And, he always said, tell me if I'm not being helpful. And so I would just encourage everybody today just to keep working hard. Thank you. Eric, do you want to say?
Well, Randy and I had the
distinct pleasure of each other's company on more than one occasion at multiple conferences, whether it was at the ASGCT, at the AAO, or other conferences, NORD, and Montpellier at our science symposiums. And he was a true force of nature. But the one thing that always amazed me, he has changed our foundation fundamentally, because before Randy, we never even thought of bringing on a professional executive director. And he finally said, we need professionals. And we did that. We worked our way through 2 different executive directors before I guess the board decided it was too hard or too much trouble. I don't know. And they asked me to go from president to executive director. But Randy and I have worked so closely together. And I had and for those of you who don't know me, I get choked up. But one of the things I've found is that I can talk in another accent. And I could talk like Randy. But Randy and I actually it was the Randy and Eric road trip last fall. And we may have seen many of you along the way, whether it was at Harvard's eye symposium on site replacement with Dr. Young, Springfield, or at NORD, or at the NEI 50th anniversary. It was kind of a constant thing. And Randy was pretty funny. He'd say, you know, I think the foundation should pay for professional tailoring. I said, why is that? Because I'm ruining the sleeves of all these doctors. But he was relentless, and he really has, he's driven so many of you here. And for it, Randy would say that's enough of that. But we're profoundly thankful. Thankful that you listened to Randy, that you took him as a dedicated father. Yeah, because Randy was a handful, but every single doctor, no matter who it was, and at Randy's passing, the emails that we were getting, whether it was at the AAO or at the NIH, there was something going on literally the day the news broke, and Dr. Sieving and others were just shocked, but said no one had ever met a more dedicated advocate for their own son to get the disease done. So y'all stop messing around and get it done.
Would anybody like to say anybody like to say a couple words? Dr. Birch?
Yeah, I'll just say that a family member of Randy's was in a clinical trial at our site, and so it was a natural history study at the time, and so Randy brought this patient in every 6 months, and about 2 weeks before each visit, he would give me a call and say, Dr. Birch, I just want to have a couple of minutes of your time while I'm there. Would that be okay? And so I would immediately cancel it even more. Also, I would have to make sure I was up on every paper, everything that had been published in the last 6 months, because he was going to groom me. He was going to get my opinion on that paper. And, I really learned more from him, I think, than he learned from me. But he was an incredible force. Power of nature, I would say. Absolutely.
Well, I remember when Randy first showed up, 2008 in Baltimore at our conference. And he was already on fire at that point, and he remained so till the last day he died. And he was at Dining in the Dark last year with Eric. They were kind of actually driving from Boston down to DC and happened to be right on the way. And I asked him to speak. And I wish we still had that video, Eric.
I know.
But anyway, he talked to the people there at Dining in the Dark, which is all friends and family members and acquaintances of mine who come and support the CRF. And he started out by taking a poll and asked how many, raising of hands, how many people with choroideremia are here. And then he went on to say, he said, Now, we have to be here. This is what we do. We are raising money. He said, the rest of you don't have to be here. You're here because you want to help. And he said, and I thank you for that. And I could see him saying the same thing to all of these doctors that are here today. You don't have to be here, but you are here because you care and you want to help. And on my favorite hillbilly's behalf, thank you.
Anybody else? Dr. Bennett?
I remember being with Randy in Montpellier, and he was, if you're American and you go to Europe, you're kind of embarrassed when there are other Americans there who act really American, like y'all, and like it's just a southern drawl. And instead of eating the fabulous French food and red wine, wanting to go to McDonald's, he really was a force of nature. And I can't tell you how many times he pulled me aside or pulled my team aside or showed up unexpectedly to give us his ideas, which were all phenomenal. And I actually just pulled up this email that he sent to me in 2013. This was a letter that he wanted me to give to Kathy Pye, who was the scientific director of Spark Therapeutics, about the critical importance of working on choroideremia. And this letter is about 10 pages of pure emotion, but ending with really good ideas, and also a beautiful picture of his family, and also a heartbreaking picture of clinical measures of his son from one time point and then 7 years down the road, just showing what happened. And I'll just read you a few sentences of this 10-page letter. Just too often there are events that occur that evoke a rescue mentality. A child falls down a well, miners are trapped underground, a tornado hits a town. These often, as they should, bring about an all-hands-on-deck response where help and resources pour in, processes are developed, and suffering is lessened. The gradual progression of choroideremia makes it an insidious foe that makes it appear as a non-emergency to those outside the patient community. For those of us in the choroideremia community, I can assure you it is very much an emergency. And he goes on to describe what happens when sight is lost and how we all have to stay on high alert. And I think the world of Randy, what he did, his passion and his dedication as a father are just, as Paul Stevens said, insurmountable. And really, there's nobody who has ever shown that much dedication. He even started a company just to develop a treatment for his son. And there are a number of recommendations in this letter, which I'm going to email Chris and Beth, that maybe we can put to work. Thank you.
I'd say a word, because I was very close to Randy too. And I sent a letter to his family. Actually, I never met his wife and son, but I sent a letter to him anyway. And he's absolutely a pit bull, and I appreciate everything he did. The one thing that I would say is that I just hope that he extracted some joy along the way. It seemed like the bar he set for himself to even sit back and say, look at how far we've come, was so high that I could never even get him to acknowledge that he's been an important player in raising awareness for choroideremia, and that no matter what happens, there will be a treatment, or there has been a treatment that likely wouldn't have come about if it wasn't for his efforts. But his immediate response was not good enough, not good enough. Which is, again, very important when you're working in diseases, especially that need attention. But at the same time, I hope folks, and I tell this to my families and my patients that I deal with, that they need to extract joy along the way, and they can't, define themselves entirely by an ailment, and that there's so much more out there. And so my hope was always that there was more to his life than fighting this giant foe. That was an important part of what he did, but I think it's an important lesson to all of us that we balance that too. And my hope was that was the case, because I hope that the last thing he didn't think was, I failed. Right? Because he didn't. He was extremely successful in what he did. I never got him to say that, though. So that's just my comment.
Thank you, Dave. Well said.
Neil,
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I've only been with CRF for, 4 or 5 or 6 years. And
Can you speak, Chuck?
Oh, sorry, I've only been with CRF for about 5 or 6 years, and I really only started to interface with Randy directly a couple years ago, and I was so much looking forward to, working with him. I'm gonna possibly take over for Chris when he steps down, but only with his extreme assistance along the way. But anytime I would talk to Randy on the phone, of course, I had to eventually tell him I was going to hang up. And that's a normal occurrence with Randy. But along the way, I mean, my goal in speaking along the terms of Dr. Gam there, I know he was just so focused on his task at hand, and I would always say, okay, but how's the Tennessee football team look? And because I knew he looked at them some. He tempered it as much as he could so it didn't look like he was actually interested in something else other than curing choroideremia. But I could actually get him to talk about the Tennessee football team, and he also had a car that he bought that he worked on the engine, and he had his own car shop, and so he did do things, and it was fun to get him away from choroideremia for a little while. But then just in a heartbeat, boom, he was back on it, and so. We do thank you guys and ladies for every single thing you have done in the past, and our goal, of course, is to keep this going stronger and better than ever, which will be difficult without Randy, but that is, of course, our goal. So good luck to all of us.
Can I say one thing before?
yeah, and you'll be the last for Ian.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta talk loudly so
Sure.
it's right.
Really, Randy was a force of nature, as people have said. At times he could be seemingly inappropriate, but his heart was always in the right place. And I wanted to share with you an occasion that I thought was absolutely hilarious and shows his pride in being from Tennessee, from Johnson City. And he wanted to talk about the unique Tennessee cuisine. And this was a video of let's say a very shady-looking hunting SUV, and the driver had a chef's apron on, and the SUV would stop, and then there was roadkill that would be scraped off the road and swung into the SUV, and then on to the next one. I just wanted to share that with you. I know it's not.
For even more context, he shot that video, and then they showed it at his church's cookout.
It was their youth camp.
It
It was their youth camp.
There you go. So here's Randy.
Yeah, the last clip was showing those guys from the truck walking into the same building where they were doing the youth camp, going, yeah, this is going to be a good dinner tonight.
Did you want to say something, Mike? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mike Mullen.
I met Randy and I think the Boston conference for the first time I had flown in when I found out my son was affected, and Randy got up and I walked in and sat down. And Randy's just walking up to talk, and I'm thinking, this is going to be some polished doctor to talk. And he starts talking, and he had 2 broken wrists. So he fell off a ladder. What am I doing here? But I just respect Randy so much. For someone, since my son's affected, Randy had all these different businesses and so forth, and he basically dropped everything that he worked so hard on in order to help his son.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Just wanted to make sure. I think that's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing in his memory, and we hope that it will continue to drive us for sure, and we hope that it will continue to drive you all as well.
Now y'all get back to work.
Go Bob. Speaking of which.